Thanks, Sarah. So let's begin with the problem. Just a short word about the language we're going to use throughout this presentation. Most of the research that we'll be citing refers to women and men. These statistics are all from surveys where participants self-reported their gender. So those groups should be assumed to include anyone who identifies as male or female. The surveys from the years this data was available did not include any gender non-binary or gender non-conforming options, but we're happy to say that in recent years, this has changed to offer more gender inclusive options, but that data is not yet available to us. Additionally, these surveys make use of the terms people of color as well as women and men of color for disaggregated data. We will also use these terms out of consistency with the research and data, but we recognize and respect that some of you may have different preferred terminology. Feel free to let us know in the chat. And lastly, terms like underrepresentation and underrepresented groups refer to groups who do not make up the same percentage of the architectural profession as their correlating percentage of the national population. So the issues with the architectural profession, and honestly, many other historically white male-dominated service professions like ours, are not a mystery. Countless surveys by our professional organizations have revealed very consistent factors that contribute to an underrepresentation of women and people of color in architecture. First among them is the issue of workplace representation itself. Women and people of color don't necessarily want to work in environments where no one else looks like them or shares their lived experiences. If you think of the word architect, you'll probably think of a white guy. If you Google famous architect, you'll be treated to a giant list of what we would be shocked wasn't 90% white guys as well. Don't get me wrong, we all love a white guy. All three of us are married to them, but we hope you'll agree this incredibly homogenous representation is a problem when we're trying to attract and recruit young, diverse students and designers to our profession. Women and people of color, especially women of color, also report a number of barriers to opportunities and advancement. Women not being paid the same as men, and people of color not being paid the same as white people in comparable positions, being less likely to be promoted to senior positions, and being less likely to be hired into architecture positions when finishing school in the first place. And for women in our industry specifically, also being encouraged to pursue interior design or other related design fields, but not architecture. Just kind of a leave that to the boys mentality. Leah.
And being referred to as the interior designer when you're on the job site.
Correct.
Oh, goodness. So if that's not enough, the traditional architecture for a model of an in-person work culture where full-time really means massive regular overtime work with no flexibility in schedule just really doesn't work for women. Women, and especially women of color, leave our profession in large numbers when they hit typical career inflection points, which is what's illustrated in this chart, such as at licensure or when starting a family. So if you take a look at that orange and dark orange lines on this chart and notice how disproportionate they are on the bottom left, where the principal level is illustrated. This is typically the highest position in an architecture firm. So you can see on the bottom right.
Bottom right.
Yeah, the bottom right. So on the right-hand column, that orange section continues to disappear, and the blue section, which represents men, increases. And this matches our experience. So in architecture school programs, most were 50-50 male to female, but that ratio would drop at each leadership level. And the three of us are incredibly rare amongst our peers for being principals at our own firm. And there are clear causes for this phenomenon. Women in architecture consistently report these top few reasons for having left or considering leaving the profession, which is a concern about poor work-life balance, the long hours, making it really difficult to start a family or have any life outside of work, and a lack of flexibility to work remotely or job share or work flexible hours to accommodate demands of caregiving for children or other family members. The same studies also include recommendations for strategies that would attract and retain women, which unsurprisingly are promote changes in the office culture to allow a better work-life balance and increase job flexibility to allow remote work, job sharing, and flexible hours. The three of us have seen many of our women friends and peers leave architecture over the years. We've been heavily involved in our women in architecture groups since the beginning of our profession. And we can confirm that these are amongst the top reasons that they have left as well. So next slide, please. So I mentioned that I started my firm back in 2018. It was called Evia Studio, and it would eventually grow and merge into what has become Architects FORA a few years ago. With Evia, I was determined to create a firm that solved these issues and would keep more diverse people in and enjoying architecture. So I asked, what did a firm look like where everyone had flexible hours and the ability to work remotely? And keep in mind, this was pre-COVID. And what did a firm look like where women had absolutely equal opportunity for advancement, and perhaps even redefine what advancement means? And most importantly, what did a firm look like where everyone's diverse voice and perspectives are celebrated rather than at worst punished or at best tolerated? And where design is deeply collaborative and egoless process, leveraging every team member's individual expertise rather than this typical top-down directive from a few elite, and yes, usually white men designers. And it turns out it's pretty fantastic. What that looks like now is our firm, FORA, which has been called the feminist architecture practice by many of our peers now, and this is something that we are fully embracing. And so Sarah is going to jump in and share a brief history about our practice and how the three of us became its leaders.
Awesome, thanks, Leah. So the story, I guess, partially starts with me. After practicing in the field of architecture for about 10 years, as I mentioned, mostly in the public school world, I was looking for a shift in my career and concurrently also learning just about the extremity and direness of the housing and homelessness crisis. After meeting some amazing organizations working to support those experiencing homelessness or in supportive housing, I began to realize the role and responsibility that we as architects have in advocating and designing housing to best serve communities and populations who are often left behind by market rate housing development models. And so I went on a hunt to find a firm that was working in the housing world and aligned with the role that I hope to play as an architect within that, and came to find OJK Architecture and Planning. Jerry King was our founder of the firm. He started the practice over 40 years ago and has been focusing on affordable housing for the last 25 years. Jerry and I worked together for about 4 months before he dropped on me that he was looking towards retirement, and asked if I'd be interested in taking over ownership of the firm. Being very new to the affordable housing world, as well as never really considered or had any desire to lead my own practice, this offer was incredibly terrifying, to say the least. And then pretty much a month later, COVID hit, which took the talk of all leadership transitions off the table. For the time being, we went into survival mode, trying to transition a very in-person firm to remote practice during the shelter-in-place mandate. To the extent that we needed to find help in that transition, and a mutual employee of ours introduced Leah and myself. Leah had been at that time running her own small cutting edge, fully remote architectural practice, serving the Bay Area in the housing world as well. She and her team helped us go remote very quickly, got all of our systems and operations set up, help us transition to Revit. We were not working in Revit before, so big shifts for our firm, working alongside Leah and her team. They also provided project design support for a few of our affordable housing projects that were in full bore go mode. As we all know, the housing crisis became even more pronounced and obvious during COVID and shelter in place. So we were very busy and very grateful to have her team supporting us. As I got to work with Leah and her team, I realized how talented and empowering they were, and that Leah really has a strong business acumen and a warm, supportive relationship with her staff that I was deeply envious of and admired. So when Jerry circled back to our conversation about a leadership transition for the firm a few months later, I thought this time, knowing Leah, and if she would partner with me, this might be something more feasible. And then to layer on top of that, Kate, who I have known since I was 18, we met the first night of the dorms at Cal Poly, and we had been doing life together ever since. We went on a walk together. We're just talking about life and career and struggles and opportunities. And I was walking her through all these things that were going on with Leah and Jerry. And she said, "Are you serious about doing this? Are you going to take over an architecture firm?" And I said, I don't know. Is it crazy? And she said, "Well, if you do it, I'm doing it with you." And so once the three of us came together, our complementary skill sets, strengths, and weaknesses just sealed the deal. And we launched into a very intensive 6-month process with a lot of negotiations, contracts, and eventually in February of 2021, we took over leadership and ownership of the firm. And now that all that was left ahead of us was to build out the practice of our dreams, which we'll share more about today. So our dream started with our mission, to tackle the housing crisis from all angles, to create vibrant, resilient, and equitable housing at all scales, because we believe that everyone deserves a place to call home. And when we as new leadership were defining our firm's identity, we asked ourselves a number of questions. What sets us apart? Why are we architects? What principles will guide our day-to-day practice? And what is our vision we hope to see in the world? And we landed on these 5 statements. And in fact, our name, Architects FORA, is not an acronym, as is the case with many firms. It's the words 4A, because we are architects for a collaborative approach, for a restorative process, for a strong community, for a resilient future, and for a just world for all.
So we are going to explore what that looks like, both from an internal perspective, so us and our team members in our firm, and then also externally, what we lovingly refer to as our 4 Cs, which are our clients, our consultants, contractors, and collaborators, to show how we live those out in everything that we do, externally and internally. And I will start with, for a collaborative approach, we are joyful, compassionate, transparent, and fun. Internally, that means that we practice very flexibly, transparently, and compassionately, and treat each other as equally valuable individuals. Externally, we focus on creating personal relationships with our clients and collaborators, where they know and trust that we have their best interests at heart. So a little bit more about how that translates internally with some of our policies. And these sort of relate to those questions that I asked earlier about how can we transform and do things differently. So our team members are allowed to work not just from home, but from anywhere. They also can work anytime within reason, as long as they're around to attend to their team meetings. But they have complete control over their flexible schedules. We are sure to never staff our team members over 40 hours a week, and that's inclusive of really abundant overhead time for learning, research, and camaraderie. We, while we're remote, we also make time to get to know each other in person with our annual retreats. And I also mentioned transparency. There's really nothing that's off the table with our firm. We talk about everything with our team members, including being very transparent and upfront about our finances and contracts, as well as our equitable pay practices, amongst many other things. Oh, and sorry, I also added, Kate, that I wanted to mention, it shows up later, but we are very proud that through these policies, we were just recently awarded a JUST label last month, which proves our dedication to being a socially just firm. And it's exactly through these innovative policies that we were able to accomplish that. So it's a major milestone we're excited about. And then externally, we are focused on giving our clients our best. And one of those methods is through our intentional milestones. We start each of our projects with a very robust in-person planning session, where we make sure to truly understand our client and the project goals. We're also very hands-on and collaborative during construction, so at the tail end of the project, with collaborative communication and a how can we solve this together attitude, rather than a pointing the fingers attitude, which is often found on construction sites. And then finally, we take time to visit with our 4 Cs during each of our retreats to further enrich those relationships in person. And then speaking of in person, here are a few more examples of us getting together for relationship building. So there's often a lot of questions about being fully remote. Is it's just that impersonal, what do you do about X, Y, and Z? No, we still get together and make sure that we have those in-person relationships and events together. So here's us attending a fundraiser event for one of our prospective clients, taking our clients out to lunch, or volunteering for one of their causes. We make sure to show up to show that we care. And then not to brag, but our approach seems to be working pretty well. We do receive regular, strong, positive feedback from our clients, and make sure to record those testimonials on Slack, which is our communication platform with our team, so that everyone on our team can feel those, warm, fuzzy feel goods of the recognition for all of the great work that they're putting in, because everyone on our team has value and contributes to how our clients perceive us. So to us, for a collaborative approach really means building relationships and intentional processes that help us collaborate in a fun and frictionless way.
Awesome. We are for a restorative process. We have purposeful ambition in all that we do and are curious and innovative by nature. We understand that research should inform our design, not just our own ideas of what feels best. So what that looks like internally, we encourage and protect dedicated time for each of our team members to actively pursue and develop subject matter expertise in a research area that they feel passionate about and is somewhat related to housing and architectural design. These research topics and focus areas just increase our overall firm's understanding of the complex, interdependent, and ever-changing landscape of housing issues and solutions. And then externally, our research specialties inform and integrate into our design process and ultimately into our projects. We believe that architecture has the power and responsibility to create positive social change in our communities through a restorative design process, informing purposely designed spaces. So internally, as I mentioned, our team members immerse themselves in research and specialty focuses ranging from Revit and custom code to improve our operations and documentation deliverables, all the way to inclusive design and human experience topics that focus our design process on empathy and our residents' lived experience. We have team members focused on advocacy and policy change within the housing world, increasing our expertise in sustainable design and efficient building performance. We have specialties that are growing into separate branches of business within our firm related to developing our own housing projects and visual storytelling that links in with community engagement. Affordable housing, permanent supportive housing, and transitional interim housing, all areas, project types that we have expertise in. They serve a wide range of lower income households as well as specific vulnerable populations. These are populations who are vulnerable to being rent burdened or displaced from their housing, populations who are vulnerable to experiencing or have experienced homelessness, including veterans, seniors, adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, adults with substance abuse or mental health struggles. These are people who are critically important to our diversity, health, and thriving of our communities. Externally, in order to best understand, collaborate with, and serve these populations, we are deeply immersed in research around trauma-informed care and design principles, how to create safe, comforting, secure, beautiful spaces for our residents. Disability forward and inclusive design strategies that benefit all people of all abilities to better navigate and experience their spaces, their homes, our projects. Human experience-backed design, where we identify who are the people that will potentially live and work in our housing projects, and design with empathy to allow their lived experience to inform our design process and decisions. To us, FORA restorative process means integrating interdisciplinary research and an intentional process to design homes that best serve residents and communities.
Okay. For a strong community, we are mission aligned, inclusive, and equitable, and believe everyone has a voice. Building a strong community within our firm means that all of our team members are not only encouraged, but expected to contribute their own diverse experience and expertise to our work. And looking outward, that means we seek input from the residents of the homes we design or the community members surrounding a future development as an essential part of our design process. Everyone has a voice that should be heard and valued, and our team is continuously learning and continuously sharing our new knowledge with each other. This takes several forms. Every Thursday, we put a design challenge from one of our active projects up on a virtual whiteboard, and we all collaborate on solutions together in real time. At our weekly team meetings, our team members take turns sharing a quick, 3 to 5 minute hot tip that they've recently learned in the course of their work that they think will help the others. Our team also takes turns sharing case studies of affordable housing developments that aren't designed by us, because there's always more to learn from the other great architects in our field. And every year, we actively recruit an architecture student from an underrepresented group to grant them a combination academic scholarship and an internship with us, which is full-time during the summer and part-time during the remaining school year. We call it the FORA-ship. And then outside of our firm, our deep value of strong communities led us to create Engage FORA, the community engagement branch of our practice. Engage FORA was really born from Architects FORA's core belief that design is better with diverse voices at the table. We all understand that we're tackling a housing crisis. So our goal is always to get quality housing built faster, but never at the expense of involving the communities where we're building that housing. What we've learned is that when we co-create places with the community, we share that sense of ownership, pride, authorship over the resulting design, and we know that designs that are loved last. So our team has developed a highly varied toolkit of events and exercises to quickly gain an understanding of the community's values and build trust with them, and explore design options to create a project vision together that strengthens the design. Our internal knowledge sharing, community engagement, and post-occupancy evaluations of our completed projects form a continuous feedback loop that we use to help make the projects we're currently designing even better. And once those projects are complete, we'll in turn study them to make our future projects the next step even better. The benefit to our work, our clients, and the future residents of the homes we design is invaluable. So to us, For a Strong Community means that by amplifying diverse voices of those who know our buildings and their surrounding communities best, we as designers are empowered to create homes that better serve people in place.
I'm just obsessed with that picture of Victoria. Sorry, this makes me smile. So next is For a Resilient Future. We're future-minded, adaptable, and resilient, and preparing for the future now. Internally, we are an adaptable team that continuously is evaluating new tools and workflows to work most efficiently. And then externally, it means we are adaptable again, but recognizing when change is the best option and are quick to make moves and nimble in our approach to addressing our clients' needs as they evolve over time. This plays out in a number of pretty different ways internally, so I'll cover a couple. The first one is really from an adaptable staff standpoint. We have what we describe as really more of this lattice structure rather than a ladder structure, which means we invest in really well-rounded architects rather than identifying a particular track that an individual needs to focus on. So that means we have great redundancy in our team, and we have sort of this ability for people to flex in and off of projects as they're most needed and as their skills are available, rather than having individuals that really can only serve one particular function on one particular project at a time. And then internally also from a technology standpoint, we invest in and sit really at the leading edge of collaborative technologies. As a virtual firm, it's really important for us to have the latest and greatest collaborative tools. I say internally, but this also reflects externally as we use these with our collaborators and partners as well. And so we try to evaluate and adapt the latest technology that allows us to stay true to our mission without overwhelming our team. So it's a bit of a balancing act, but definitely the backbone of what we do. Externally, we are adaptable in the work that we do. And in one of those ways is our dedication to climate resilience. Most of our work is LEED rated, a lot of LEED Platinum projects. And we ensure that we have a comprehensive pre, during, and post-design process to ensure that performance. One of our team members, as Sarah mentioned, we have different specialties, is our building science specialist. who has devised an entire program to make sure that we have a sustainability champion on each project that sets goals at the beginning of each project during our kickoff and tracks those along the way. We are also an AIA 2030 signatory and are reporting our climate data to the overall profession as a whole to track performance. And lastly, we are adaptable in our flexibility and being nimble in response to understanding when change is the best option. This plays out in the beginning of our work, where we quickly are iterating to find the right solutions as quickly as possible for our clients, but also later in the end of our practice. So even during construction, while we're continuing to learn, as Sarah mentioned, our investment in trauma-informed design, this is research that's at the cutting edge and is continually evolving. And rather than waiting for that to make a positive impact on a future project, we evaluate our current projects and see where we can have and take the opportunity to influence and make positive changes even while under construction. So the photos on the bottom left are a project where we did just that. We were able to implement a number of important trauma-informed design approaches on this project that is just, I think, basically completed essentially construction. And we are excited to now see residents moving in and enjoying those spaces that have been designed and adapted specifically for their population type. So to us, for a resilient future means embracing change to promote health in our team and our built environment.
And finally, we're for a just world. We engage with our communities meaningfully and are bold activists. It is a vital part of our work to advocate and educate around housing. So internally, we encourage our team members to advocate for change in their own communities, allowing a small firm to have a national impact. Remember, as a remote practice, we have team members across the country living in all different types of cities and towns. Externally, we advocate for policies that will create more affordable housing opportunities in the communities where we work, because ultimately we deeply care about who is impacted and how. Internally, we have quarterly team meeting challenges. Each quarter has a different focus area. A recent challenge focused on local advocacy, encouraging our team to get involved with housing topics and organizations where they live. Team members regularly share out about their hometowns and the current conversations, issues around housing, and what makes their hometown a great place to live. We also have an active mentorship and education program that's called FORA Evolve, where we invest in our team members' growth and development professionally. Externally, we advocate and educate widely and often. I'll give you a few examples here. On the left, Kate's at the California Assembly advocating for streamlining legislation for affordable housing. And on the right, Kate's at a Fort Collins Council meeting advocating for a local zoning code update. Here we have photos of Victoria, one of our team members who helped to found the local Strong Towns Portland chapter. These are a few of their events. Their organization focuses on advocating for interdisciplinary responsible urban development, balancing fiscal, transportation, housing, and more considerations. This is an image from a Silicon Valley at Home Measure E rally in downtown San Jose, fighting to protect local funds for permanent affordable housing in San Jose. I'm in the top left corner, attending with a number of our partner organizations and clients. And here is Leah at a Whatcom County Housing Alliance, that's in Northern Washington, where she is, advocating for missing middle housing policy reform at the state and local levels. And finally, here is Teddy, one of our team members, presenting at a Catalyze SV event here in the Bay Area, presenting on strategies for designing specifically for women and children to create safe, inclusive, and welcoming spaces. So to us, for a just world means fighting for policies and practices that support a just future for all. And we do this for all because housing is a basic necessity for everyone to thrive.
So as we come to a close, we're going to leave a little time for questions. While our presentation has been focused on solving the issues in our own industry, we hope some of the ideas we've shared with you this afternoon can be applied more broadly to your industries and workplaces as well. I'm not sure how many students we have on the call, but we're often asked what advice we have for students or for folks starting out in their careers. And so my advice is always the same, that you won't always have the widest variety of options for your first job straight out of school. But wherever you land, just become a sponge. Absorb as much knowledge and learn as many new skills as you possibly can. Volunteer for those reach tasks and let your company leadership know when you're ready for more. And if you find yourself in a place that doesn't value your voice or perspective, just move on. There's no prize for staying at your first job the longest. And new companies are being started by more diverse leadership every day. So don't settle for the status quo. Find your people. They're out there waiting for you.
Yeah, find your people or create a place for your people, right? I think mine is always follow your heart, even if it's counter to everything you see or what other people are telling you, which is a really hard thing to do and something that I struggled with for many years. But I can say that once doing so, I am so much happier and fulfilled than I ever have been. So even though it's scary to embrace something that's very different that people will straight up tell you is not going to work, even the most successful architect arguably ever hold me to my face that my plan was never going to work. So getting that feedback was rough. But I stuck with it and followed my heart, and now get to practice with these brilliant women and a really compassionate and loving team, doing work that really matters. And I couldn't imagine doing anything else. So it's worth it. It's hard, it's scary, but it's worth it.
My advice is very similar to Leah's, but figure out what you care about, what excites you. What we do as architects and other professions, it's really hard work and it takes up a lot of your time. It's not for the faint of heart. It's going to eat up a lot of your energy, and it's just not worth doing if you don't care about the outcomes of your efforts. So I encourage everyone to find a cause that you care about, that means something to you. Find a firm, an organization, a company that is focused on solving that problem, and then go after it. Chase it down. And if that organization doesn't exist, as Leah mentioned, watch out. You might be the perfect person to create something new. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for attending today. We know that was a lot of information, and if you couldn't absorb all the details, we've got your back. This presentation is recorded, and we're happy to send out the slides as well.